So our first speaker tonight is going to be, whose verse is it anyway? We call GreggDrinkwater, future doctor, to come up here. Thank you.
So I was hoping to go after Senator Foster because she's referencing the verse just before mine. So we're going slightly out of order, but it'll all make sense because as the commentators on Torah tell us, there is no time in the Torah. It doesn't actually happen in a linear order, so it really doesn't matter. So in 2006, I created an online Torah commentary project called Torah Queries. And a few years later, I co-edited a book, a Torah commentary by the same name. And in doing that project, I was inspired by a vision of expanding the voices of LGBT people and allies to bring their unique wisdom and insights to the Jewish tradition, and by doing so to enrich Judaism and to enrich all of us. Doing so, of course, required going back to the very beginning, although I just told you that the beginning isn't really the beginning, but pretend I didn't say that, to the book of Genesis and the first parashah, the first Torah portion, and the opening verses of our most sacred text. So Parashat Breshit, the very first Torah portion, functions, some of us might have thought about this before, as the Ur text, as the foundational text of love in Judaism, among many other things. Like the rest of creation, the source of love, the purpose of love, and love's beginnings all emerge in the opening verses of Breshit. And when read through a different lens, I would argue it is also the source of a vision of the sanctity of same-sex love, of love for gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people. So let's see how I get there. So we all know the general outline of the first chapters of Genesis, or at least I hope we do. In the beginning was void and emptiness, but then God creates the universe piece by piece. And with each new act of creative energy, God sees that it is good, that it is tov. But reading between the lines, we see that the creation of the world actually faces some resistance. So something that my friend Steve Greenberg, who's a gay Orthodox rabbi, pointed out was that long before Adam was created, in the very beginning of creation, the waters of the earth, the waters above and the waters below, were separated by God in order to create the sky. But they didn't want to be split. An ancient sage once said that the upper and lower waters separated from each other in weeping. The waters longed to be as they were, to be left alone, undifferentiated, together and united. All things want union, this teaches us, and creation struggles against this as much as anything else. And this resistance we see even before the creation of Adam. So hold that thought, because we're going to come back to that point. So after filling the heavens and the earth and creating all kinds of other things that we know about, and possibly encountering more resistance, God creates the first human, Ha'adam. So note, when discussing Genesis, I generally like to refer to Adam as Ha'adam rather than Adam. In Hebrew, that's what it says, and Adam causes us to immediately imagine a man, a male figure, whereas Ha'adam is a bit more ambiguous, and by using the phrase Ha'adam, it sort of calls attention to that ambiguity, which is something that the rabbinic commentators in the ancient Midrash noted when they actually questioned whether the first Ha'adam is in fact even a man. But the details of whether the first Ha'adam is a man or not is a topic for another talk, so I won't go into that. But going back to this, we now have Ha'adam, and he's getting set up in the Garden of Eden, and all seems to be going well. And then suddenly, in Genesis 2:18, we are told of the world's first lo tov, first not good moment. The verse says, God said, "It is not good for Ha'adam to be alone. I will make a fitting helper for him." So the first and most profound need of the original human, the model on which we are all based, was to experience love and companionship. Before finding fulfillment, Ha'adam had to first experience loneliness, love's absence. Love is something denied. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people, LGBT people, understand Ha'adam's pain. For many of them, too, have experienced a world that has long denied them their love. But we know the end of the story, right? Ha'adam found love in the arms of Eve, or Chava, the two becoming the first heterosexual couple and a model for traditionalist Jews and Christians opposed to this day to gay inclusion. So how, then, can I argue that Bereshit is a proof text that affirms the sanctity of same-sex love? It all depends, I would argue, on where you see the climax of the story. When reading Bereshit, traditionalists see clear and obvious evidence that God places heterosexual union at the core of the divine plan, and that the synergy between a husband and a wife is nothing short of a reflection of the joyous harmony of creation. It's the Big Bang, if you will, that shapes human destiny and gives each of us a sense of self and belonging. In this reading of the Torah, the union of man and woman recreates the original balance of Eden, bringing us ever closer to the will and the wisdom of God. But let's take a step back. Does God actually create Eve as the first and immediate response to the lo tov of Ha'adam's loneliness? If you look more closely at the text, you see, surprisingly, that immediately after our lo tov verse, the story continues not with the creation of Eve, but with the following. And God formed out of the earth all the wild beasts and all the birds of the sky, and brought them to Ha'adam to see what he would call them. And whatever Ha'adam called each living creature, that would be its name. Ha'adam names many beasts, and no fitting helper, though, is found. In the Midrash, rabbis suggest perhaps Ha'adam was actually intimate with the beasts, searching for companionship, for love, but without success. It's only then that God creates Eve out of Ha'adam's rib. So when reading Bereshit through a LGBT lens, you see things a bit differently. The divine plan is still there, with its focus on synergy and joyous harmony of creation. But where the traditional view finds the climax in the union of a man and a woman, the queer read sees the joining together of Ha'adam and Eve as merely a vehicle for the real endpoint, love. More specifically, love as tikkun, as repair, and as a solution to the ultimate loneliness of being. In the traditional view, male and female unions are understood as both means and end. But the queer perspective understands such unions as only a means. The end, the goal, is love and reunion, however we get there. Our hope is to recreate the original balance of Eden, and each of us finds our own path to that reunion. The beauty and the power of Bereshit lies in God's response to the lo tov of loneliness, the creation of love and companionship, not the creation of heterosexuality. Each of us is created in God's image, as Senator Foster will tell us in a moment, and the gift of love, of tikkun, is God's gift to us all. From this perspective, an affirmation of same-sex love no longer seems like a stretch in Bereshit. It is but a reflection of the will and wisdom of God. And may we know his day speedily and soon, when love, in all its glorious diversity, is celebrated and affirmed in all of our synagogues and in all of our communities. And may the day come to pass when we reach real tikkun, so that the waters of the heavens above and the waters below are left weeping no more.